And we are back. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Media Network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island, the naked city, the city of about 345,000 stories. And there's been a couple this week, but we're going to get right to someone else who is, I guess, part of what I'll call the Rhode Island game of whack-a-mole, because right now in cities across Rhode Island, we are facing structural challenges in education that are, quite frankly, beyond the pale. Much has been spoken about around Warwick, Rhode Island, over the last few months and the budgetary challenge they face. Providence became an international story over the past 2 weeks, with USA Today, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times all weighing in. So, because of the East Bay focus of this particular production, we have given a great deal of time to Bristol Warren. Daryl Gould joined us a couple times over the last few weeks and did one particularly memorable, hectic late-night session as we brought to bear the guns of the coalition, if you will, on the Bristol Warren School District. Because of the structural, and I'm using the coalition air quotes, challenges it faces. At the end of one particularly hectic night, the superintendent, much to the relief of all, chose to, either resign or announce his resignation, depending on which political shill you spoke to that week. My words, not my guess. And clearly facing challenges that might not be quite as desperate as Providence, but really a reflection of what's going on around the state. So it is with great joy that I welcome back my friend, someone that I've been involved with politically, full disclosure, for a number of years, someone who is a sponsor of this production, Daryl Gould. Daryl, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
All right, so Daryl, your efforts have been yeoman-like. You work closely with a dedicated group of people, and I want to point out that all of these folks are intimately involved in working to improve the school system. We had that late night announcement with the then superintendent of schools resigning. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes here. Kind of give us an update. What's happened since then, and what is the path forward?
So, as you referenced, Pat, that Monday evening that we had attended the school committee meeting for the Bristol Warren School District, there was a surprise announcement at the end of the meeting that Dr. Mario Andrade had resigned as superintendent. This came as a surprise to a lot of us because we'd fought on a lot of these issues for years. The bullying issues our district faces are not new. The IEP issues, the 504 issues, the disciplinary issues, these are issues we've been dealing with literally for years. So we were really surprised and wondered a little bit about the impetus for the sudden resignation. My personal thoughts are, for the first time, there's been attention brought to some of the financial goings on in the district, bidding processes, and the contractor work and sole sourcing these things, and are they actually going out to bid? So, we've always run a parent and student advocacy group. It wasn't a taxpayer advocacy group, so we never really got, other than advocating for funding for our district. We haven't really looked at the financial underbelly of the district, and I think that there's really something there. And my personal thoughts are that may be what was ultimately the largest driver for Dr. Andrade getting out. We are in the process of trying to determine what that looks like. The message from the school committee is this is something that has been in talks about for months. I think that's just damage control at this point, given that there was a wondering who was going to be the interim. Anytime if you have a plan to succeed somebody, the first thing you do is, in succession planning, is pick who your interim or your next person is going to be. If you've been talking about that for months and you don't have anyone identified, then I think that's problematic unto itself. So we really haven't seen. We're hoping to get some more information through requests, whether it's FOIA requests or open meeting request type stuff, that we can get some visibility into what his departure looked like. For many of us, we are of the opinion that Dr. Andrade could have been terminated with cause, so there really should be no impact financially to the district as far as if there was some sort of buying out of his contract. I think if that was done, that would be a grave mistake, because again, I think there was enough there to fire him with cause. So that's where we are with the superintendent. There is an active search right now for the interim and long-term replacements for Dr. Andrade. As we've talked about quite a bit, this is just one small step in everything that needs to happen. And much like you referenced, Pat, I'm very fortunate that I work with a great group of parents, a growing group of parents that are really involved and really passionate about this stuff. And we actually had a gathering, kind of an informal gathering of us earlier in the week. And it's the downside of, it's very positive to see everybody getting together and working together to a common goal. The downside is for every person that comes into our group, they have a whole slew of stories of their experiences and what they've had to deal with. And it's tough. There was a point I was shown a writing sample by a student who's entering 6th grade in our district. And this writing sample was something you'd see out of or expect out of maybe a 1st grade student. Just random punctuation, gross phonetic spelling. It just wasn't working. And so it begs the question, how is this child allowed to move through a system when clearly they're not operating at grade level? And I think it lends to, much that, like you've been saying with everything going on with Providence, this is the perfect example of the failure of our public school system, where we don't do anything well. A large portion of our students are damned because of the zip code that they live in. They're to be attend poor schools. And we're talking about suburbia here. This isn't inner city. We really shouldn't be dealing with the problems that we're facing here. And it's systemic. It comes from a curriculum standpoint. There is a systemic, failure to adhere to the districts and the state's own policies when it comes to discipline. So there's just so many aspects of this that have come off the rails that it's almost overwhelming at times, and you really have to, focus in on one aspect of it and really hope to make change there. Because if you look at trying to change the whole thing from a systemic standpoint, it's overwhelming, and quite honestly, I don't think it's possible. So something dire has to be done. My hope is that we have options for other educational options for our kids. I hope we get them in our district before my kids move on, because I can't. If I'm finding it more and more difficult to struggle with, knowing how the sausage is made and continuing to send my kids into that factory.
And that's the toughest part.
Becoming more and more difficult to deal with.
Right. So many folks these days, never mind when there's a husband and wife or partners involved who have the stronger circumstances of a 2-income or maybe 3-income family. Particularly challenging if in fact it's a single mom or a single dad, and the finances associated with that. They often are precluded, not because of a lack of desire or a lack of love of the child. It may be simply a question of expertise. It may be simply a question of time or familiarity. Have the tools really to do a clinical assessment of their children's educational opportunities. And that's exacerbated.
I think for too long. I think too long people, I hate to say it's misplaced trust. We've misplaced trust in our school district. We've trusted these people to make the, in decisions that were in the best interest of our students, and to work in, what's most important to their education. We've seen profiteering. People have found ways to monetize our public education system. We've seen, nepotism and politics creeping into, small, school committee boards and things along those lines. It's a level of corruption from top to bottom that it's gross. It really is.
Right. When you've got and it's been alleged that you've got a school system here that actively interferes and limits exposure to the IEP process and or the benefits that can be obtained from having an IEP. When you have that, even at its most superficial level, how are parents to be informed before, quite frankly, it's too late? I mean, because if you get a child to 8th, 9th, 10th grade, it may be too late. Not for lack of want, not for lack of desire, not for lack of work ethic, but simply because of the way children learn. How and then are you supposed to challenge the status quo? If the system aggressively works to prevent you from having an understanding of your options and your needs, what's the average parent to do at this point?
Well, and I think, again, you look at education as a whole, and the things that we do, that there hasn't been much change in education in over 100 years. And I think one of the biggest failings of the system is kind of this channel lock system that we have with grades, where we all know kids learn different subjects, different subject matter at different rates, depending upon their interests, their educational background, their aptitude, socioeconomic factors. So to take kids and bottle them up and, like I said, use this, segmented where you're all moving in together. And so even if you excel, you rocketeer towards that next channel lock, and you have to wait for everyone else to catch up. And so it's teaching to the middle. It's such a failure of most of the students in the district. You're teaching to the middle. The kids who need the most are left behind, and the kids who excel, unfortunately, never reach their full potential because they keep on having to be told, we need to wait for everyone else to catch up to you.
And I say this, as you've heard me ask this question a couple times in public environments, and I qualify this by saying I'm only aware of this because I've been blessed enough to have 2 children who've succeeded at a very high level academically. I'm married to a teacher, and so again, the joke is, like you said, you know how the sausage is made. Would you, if you're married to a chef, you never want to go out to eat again. I'm intimately aware of this just because of life circumstances, not because I'm certainly not smarter or faster or better than anyone. And so I say that in anticipation of a very pointed question. Are parents in Rhode Island, and I love Rhode Island, I'm here for the duration. It's a very tribal place. It's its own insulated little cocoon. As a result, do you think parents are aware of just how challenged their children are academically in anticipating the competition they're going to face? Whether it's career, college?
I think because we've reached, and there's a ton of reasons behind it, but I think just at its surface, it's fairly plain to see that the demands on our times as parents these days are significantly greater than those even put on our parents, because the hyper level of expectations that come with being a parent these days. We're not chauffeurs. We can't just let our kids ride bikes down to the park. We have to supervise them at all times. So that additional burden, and the requirements that puts on families, and like you said, especially single parent households, you just don't have time to really dig down into it. That's been complicated by the fact that a lot of parents, even those who are, willing to try and help, their elementary school students with their math homework, we don't understand. We don't deal with the common core stuff. It's counterintuitive to us. It makes no sense. We can't help our kids with this stuff. So it's some of its willingness, some of its ability. I think my hope, honestly, is for anyone who's listening, especially the people, my neighbors in Bristol and Warren, there's a lot going on in our district that people really need to pay attention to. And there's a level of, I hate to say it, corruption, really, that exists in our school district. And people are stealing from our district, and people are stealing from our children and robbing them of, we're sitting here making cuts to teachers left and right. We're throwing money at other problems. We haven't fixed anything. We're a mess. And I think we're going to be the only thing that the biggest right now, the school committee for Bristol Warren should be sending flowers and chocolates to the good people in the Providence education system, because that is the only reason why Bristol Warren is not totally front page news right now. It's because there's another education story that unfortunately just has to be a house of horrors.
Right.
It is so bad and it's so egregious that even though ours is terrible, we just, even at our worst, we just don't have the ability and resources to be as bad as Providence is, because of the nature of, that being obviously a city and us being small suburban environment.
Right. If there was a movie analogy, you folks would be Dracula, Providence would be Hostile. It's that bad. And yet, and this is what's been startling to me. We're a few months into Kickamuet's middle school generated crisis, if you will, that now clearly has reached across the board to the entire Bristol Warren school system. And at least someone at the very high level met their doom over it, or for some reason.
Right.
We have yet to hear a single firing, a single change in personnel in the city of Providence. How astonishing is that?
It's knowing how bad Rhode Island is and how this is business as usual. Yeah, the fact that our new education commissioner is falling right into the Rhode Island, I know a guy, nepotism garbage that we become a part of our governmental and state culture. Mm-hmm. This is a few weeks after being on the job. So I don't know what. I feel bad. I feel really bad for the good people in Providence. The stories that are coming out of, as bad as I think we have it in Bristol Warren, and there's a lot to be concerned about. It's like I said, it's not hyperbole to call it a house of horrors. What's going on in that district it's just morally reprehensible, disgusting.
And incredibly enough, it's the middle of July. Depending on the school system, you've got anywhere from 40 to 60 days left before school starts again. Is there anything that leads you to believe that we can expect any short-term improvement whatsoever in Bristol Warren School District?
I think it's possible. I think we have some opportunities with some open positions, ranging from interim superintendent to some of the vacancies at principal. So I think there is an opportunity to bring some new people in here without the bad habits, without the connections, hopefully, that have led to some of the bad behavior. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be, we really need to look at our school committee. I think there's still some people who are aware or have participated in questionable behavior, which I would characterize as unethical up to and possibly including illegal. So I think we have to get rid of a lot of the bad apples. We can't really fix things until the bad teachers, the bad administrators, the bad players and staff, or whoever's involved, anyone who's again profiteering off the system or doing things at the student's expense. Those people, we need to make sure those people are gone, because they're a cancer, and we won't really be able to turn things around unless we have leeches like that. Removed from the system. So I think my optimism, the optimism that I do have, comes from really, Pat, the people that I see working on this. There's a level of dedication in our district that I have not seen since my kids are in school. So that my daughter's going into 8th grade. So For the last 8 years, we've been, for the better part, we've been fighting on these issues. And now we're finally seeing a great group of people who's dedicated. People know their stuff. We're starting to have people who I would consider subject matter experts. And it's a real team environment, and we're all working towards the same goals, which is really, make this the best possible district and for our students, and try and turn this thing around. So my optimism does come from that. We're not, we can't help but live in reality. So I can't be, all puppies and sunshines and unicorns and all that stuff about the district, because there's just so much wrong. But again, I am optimistic in that we have a great group of people who span all different, parents who span all different grades in our schools and all the different schools within our district. So I think we have a great group of people moving forward, and that's where my positivity comes from.
Well, I thank you for jumping in here tonight and giving us an update. I know that you're from time to time going to join us, and feel free to use our platform here as a way to reach out to folks across the district and really across the state, because the lessons that you're learning as far as what to do in a crisis situation clearly can be extrapolated to districts from Warwick to West Warwick to Providence and across the board. And the key factor, of course, is motivated, caring, interesting parents. It was heartening to see the Central Falls, for example, parents show up and be so aggressive and so frustrated with the state's takeover. Yet, at the same token, we're still talking about a state takeover of Providence. Oh my. Stick with it, buddy, and my congratulations to all the parents and all the community members out there who are fighting such an important fight on behalf of young people. This is a wonderful state with wonderful people, caring, smart. It's just a question, I believe, of focus, and you guys are doing a great job. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks, as always. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the support.
All right, Daryl Gould, educational activist, Bristol Warren School District, Regional School District, working cooperatively with literally dozens of parents on a variety of issues. And that's the important part. It's community involvement, parental reassertion of their rights that means so much in a situation that we face here in Rhode Island, whether it be Providence, West Warwick, Bristol Warren, or we're going to take a brief moment off. My next guest, who is intimately involved in, I believe, a coming resurgence in Rhode Island's, what I call Rhode Island's Forgotten City. And that's our friends up in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Joining me in our next segment in just a moment or two, we're going to shuffle the seats and the camera a little bit. Alexander Kethis, he has been on the show before as an environmental activist. He's decided to take it to the next level. At the Coalition, we applaud folks. We see them, the true patriots, are folks who are willing to not only be community activists, but to take their activism to a new level, which involves running for elected office. And that elected office can be a local water board, a school board, in this case a town council, a mayoralty, or at the statewide level, the General Assembly or perhaps one of the executive offices. Folks who are willing to do so, to extend themselves, deserve a hearing, our support, and our gratitude. So we're going to take a quick break now. As always, we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media. We're broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Network at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center. Folks, if you have a moment, like us on Facebook, follow us on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and check out our new offerings in terms of our podcasts as we share them from the Facebook and our YouTube videos. Stay tuned. Alexander Kethis in studio. We'll be right back.